In this video, we're going to cover a few basic tips for minimizing cheating in your online Canvas quizzes. Let's start with your quiz settings. One of the most basic options to checkmark is the Shuffle Answers item. This ensures that the answer choices are displayed to students in random order. Just keep this option in mind when developing your quiz questions. If you shuffle the answer order, you don't want to have an answer that shows up like this to a student. See how the All of the Above item shows up out of order? Write your questions carefully if you plan on shuffling the answers. Let's see our next quiz option, which is the time limit. Setting a time limit ensures your students don't have enough time to Google the answers. Usually about a minute per question is enough, but use your best judgment. The next option is to allow multiple attempts. This is great for a low-stakes practice quiz as it allows students to take the quiz over and over until they're comfortable with the material. But for a higher stakes exam, you'll likely want to prevent multiple attempts unless you're using question banks to draw random questions from, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes. Next, we have the ability to allow students to see their quiz answers, and we can select how we want them to view the responses. For example, is seeing the quiz results once after each attempt sufficient? Or is this a low-stakes learning exercise where we want students to be able to learn from the feedback that you incorporated in your quiz questions? You can also allow students to see the correct answers and set a specific time window when they can view these answers. For example, maybe you want them to be able to see the correct answers for a practice quiz for a few days before the big test, or maybe you want them to be able to view the answers after the midterm. Next, we can ensure students only see one question at a time and lock each question after answering. This is particularly helpful if you know that a later question on the quiz reveals the answer to an earlier question. Next, under quiz restrictions, we can require an access code, which is particularly valuable if you're proctoring a quiz in class or if you've arranged to have a quiz proctored by the Tutorial Center. This prevents students from taking the quiz outside of the testing environment. Another way to do this is to limit the time your quiz is available. If you're proctoring your quiz in class on Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m., then make sure your quiz open and close dates are in line with your class. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the quiz options you have to limit cheating. Another great way to do this is to use question banks. This allows you to create a bank of multiple questions that your quiz can automatically draw random questions from, which means your students will all have random questions. The way you create a question bank is to go back into the quizzes section of your Canvas course. Now click on the icon with 3 vertical dots to the top right. This is where you'll find the place to manage your question banks. You can create as many question banks as you want and order them however you'd like. For example, you may find it useful to include questions based on the chapters in the textbook. I find it easiest to create question banks based on learning outcomes. This allows me to create multiple questions that address each learning outcome, and then I can reuse my question banks for midterms and finals as well. As long as I have sufficient number of questions in my banks, I can be sure that my students are getting mostly different questions in their quizzes throughout the course. That's it for this quick video on minimizing cheating in your online Canvas quizzes. Carefully selecting your quiz settings, using question banks, and proctoring your exams are great ways to ensure your students are playing fair. If you'd like to learn more about remotely proctoring your students' exams for DE courses, check out www.hartnell.edu/pdc/Canvas. Thanks for watching.